Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Karen Stanley. Karen states, I'm not a doctor or a psychologist. She is just someone who has learned through the school of hard knocks vital lessons that have helped her hydroplane over the crap of life and find her purpose and help others to do the same. Karen felt she was a single mom for 1,000 years. And as she then says, okay, it was only actually 8 years. However, it felt like forever. Karen finally found true love after dealing with abuse, going through divorce, and experiencing bankruptcy, foreclosure, and repossession of her car, all while raising 2 kids alone. After attracting the wrong partner time and time again, she realized if she wanted to manifest her relationship she always wanted, she must become the person she always wanted to be. Once she completed the work to increase her self-worth, people who did not enhance her life were no longer interesting nor attractive to her. The best benefit to Karen's newfound self-worth was no longer being a magnet of those with low or no self-esteem that she had allowed to hold her back in her life. Karen believes all people can find lasting love, no matter what the heck they have gone through. She is living proof that healthy, happy love is possible. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Karen. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited too. I've been looking forward to this. So,
me too.
Karen, one of the things I talk to about people is their origin story. And I don't know if you've have heard me before talk about it, but to me, life isn't about just what they call our backstory. Your life just didn't start when you started being successful in business or you started in a career and you failed or whatever the case may be. Our origin story starts from when we were little. So I really want to talk about your origin of where you started. I don't want to be like Marvel and Star Wars where they start in the middle and then years later they decide to fill in the gaps. I want to know the gaps now because I think it tells us a lot about who you are and why you got to where you are from the time of your first recollection of memories and growing up to where you are as the fantastic person you are today. So tell me your origin story and what key things from your childhood to adulthood that led you to where you're at currently.
Oh, wow. Well, that could be 6 hours straight.
Perfect. Let's go. We'll have a 6-part mini series.
Yeah. So I grew up in a very large, very religious family. I am number 5 of 11 children. I have 5 older, 5, I'm number 6, excuse me, 5 older, 5 younger. I'm right in the middle. And it's such a wild, wild way to grow up that only people with very large families can understand. I always tell people it's kind of like we used to get yelled at for locking the bathroom door because one person, it'd be one sister in the closet, one sister on the toilet, one sister at this sink, one sister at this sink at all times. You're never allowed to lock the door.
That's really funny.
It was crazy. And my dad was in the Air Force. So we moved every couple of years. Before I was born, they lived in Japan for a couple of years. I was born in Georgia. We moved to Germany. So my first recollections, funny that you asked that, is we lived on base housing. And I remember my room, which meant I was number 6. They had a baby number 7. So we had 7 kids in a 3-bedroom apartment on base. Yeah, nuts. But my first recollection is a red carpet with the piano. So they had a piano, and that's how important music was to my family. and a bunk bed. I don't know if there were 2 beds or 3, but I remember it had a red carpet. And so I was, we moved there when I was a baby. And then my next youngest sister was born there. And moved around a lot. So finally, right in the 90s, when the first President Bush was doing a lot of the military cuts, is when they politely asked him to retire immediately. And it was right at 27 years. So he was just shy of the most amount of tenure for your retirement. And it was just kind of a shocking thing because he wasn't planning on it. He thought he was going to have another 3 years. So he had to do a quick career change and ended up working for an insurance company. But that was in the 90s. And so that's why we lived in San Antonio. We were stationed in San Antonio, Texas. And that's why I lived there the longest, because he retired there. And then, we didn't move again. I would say it was a forced extrovert situation. Every couple of years, you had to go meet new friends. I didn't have any choice. And so I'm not even sure if I'm an introvert or an extrovert. I'm more introverted, but I had to, if I wanted to meet any friends, I had to make friends. I was the new girl all the time. And it's funny how so many things shaped, just having a life like that, where you don't have any privacy, you don't have anything that's your own, you don't have any new clothes. Every single thing I wore was a hand-me-down. And everything we bought was from a yard sale or from Goodwill. And we learned how to read music the same time we learned how to read English. So 4 years old, mom's teaching me how to read, then you get on the piano and then you're learning how to read music.
Wow.
That's how important music was. It wasn't a jolly little activity that everyone was passionate about. It was mandatory. If you wanted to go out and play, you play the piano for 30 minutes and then you can go outside and play.
Wow.
It's nuts.
That's awesome. So I love some of the things you brought up, though. And your recollection of a red carpet and piano, bunk bed. It's great, though, that you have those memories, being the 6th of 11 children. So I can't experience that. I know myself, I have 5 kids. My dad was one of 18, so I do know what it's like to hang out with large families. My mom was one of 9. And they probably would have had a bigger family, but my mom's, dad passed away when she was 14. So I never knew him. And my grandma never ever got remarried, and they had 9 kids already at that time. But my dad was one of 18. So yeah, I can kind of understand, but I can't, because I can't imagine having to be in a closet while somebody's in the bathroom. Which is, what an amazing visual. I love it. You're great at telling that story. So you said your family was very religious, Christian, Catholic, just Christian, what?
LDS, Mormon religion.
Oh,
some
okay.
people call them Mormons or LDS or Latter-day Saints.
I know. I have, I have so many friends. My daughter's engaged right now to, and his whole family's Mormon, right? So.
Oh, wow. So cool.
Yeah. So she's one of my 4 daughters is engaged. So, but I have my dad, I grew up in a small community outside of Edmonton, and a lot of my dad's workers, salespeople that became family friends. And right up to the days of them passing away, they were all Mormon, because they lived in a little community outside of our small community, and the whole community was Mormon. So we just, for me, it wasn't, you Catholic, you Lutheran, you Protestant, you Mormon, you Jehovah's Witness. It was just, you're human, you're people. That's the way my dad raised me, right? We had our belief system, but it didn't mean that we couldn't respect and appreciate other people, right? And the reason I asked if it was Catholic, because a lot of times when people tell me they're from big families, they're Catholic family, right? But Mormon too.
It's usually one or the other. That's what I always say. It's either Mormon or Catholic. It's got to be 11 kids.
Yeah. So, so are you still very religious, or are you just?
No, I'm not in a religion per se, but I'm very spiritual, and I had, the reason why I bring that up, and just it's a very strict, very fundamentalist, rule, as far as,
I know it is
strict set of rules. And, and I think what that did was, when I fell away, or I wanted to separate myself from that religion. I was in my early 20s. So it's been a long time. And I really, I just developed this like anger. I was just mad about, I just wanted to be rebellious, and I just wanted to break all of the rules that they told me to follow. And I had this, that I had so much anger inside, and I didn't want to believe in God. I didn't want to believe in anything. I didn't want anything to do with it. Just, and if you're going to talk about spirituality, or you're going to talk about God, go talk to somebody else, get away from me. And I had this kind of explosion inside where just like, I'm sick of everyone telling me what to do.
I can appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I went through this rough period where I didn't believe in God, and I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't, just everybody, get your religion away from me. And what's really cool is that, going through all of those, the next few years, and then, going through my divorce, and like you said, at the same time, bankruptcy and foreclosure, and I lost my car, and I eventually left my company to join another agency. I didn't even have enough money to buy my own laptop. So the woman who had started the company, it was her company, and she hired me and wanted to bring me on. She had to buy me a laptop first. I mean, that's how destitute I was. And it was really then where I started to rebuild my spirituality and really just be, really more connected to a higher power and to God again, because I realized that even though that you think you're alone, for me, I always thought, well, I'm alone. I'm going to handle it. I'm just going to, get through whatever it is and be in the depths of despair. And then I thought, I heard somebody say that, when you pray, that's you talking to God, and then your intuition is God talking to you. And it really struck me. Had a profound effect on me. And I thought, I'm just going to start praying again, because I grew up praying, obviously. And it had a profound effect on me. I felt like I wasn't alone. I felt like there was a purpose, not just to make my whole life a complete mess for nothing. And I could just start all over again. And then I could, it felt like, there is a greater purpose. There's a greater power behind all of this that we don't understand. Just makes more sense to me that way. We can't possibly understand everything. So there's got to be a higher power. And I believe it's God. And it really helped me kind of cling to what was really important and what I really needed to do. And what really mattered, these two humans that he entrusted to me. And we didn't see their father very much because he worked out of town a lot. So it was sporadic here and there. And then I didn't feel alone. Like I'm not alone. God's always with me. He's going to guide me to what's next, because I couldn't possibly know. What do I do now? I'm raising a son by myself. I felt like an idiot. And, but the more that I prayed, the more that I centered, and the more that I got, quiet, and I felt like I could receive the guidance, then I felt like I would be able to know better. I would be guided to what is the best for us. It's the three of us now. What are we going to do? Like, just, and really, really got quiet, and really gave me a lot more peace. So I didn't feel like I was alone.
Well, and choice is so important. Like you talked about, I mentioned it at the beginning. You went through all the bankruptcy, repossession, and all the pressures of growing up as in a very staunch religion. We feel helpless. And once we hit a certain age, I was the same way. Grew up very Catholic, Bible thumping Catholic, I would call it. And, altar server, part of the choir, volunteered youth group, did all this stuff. But I hit a certain age where enough was enough. And it wasn't that I stopped believing in God. I started realizing that organized religion, and for those listening, I'm not trying to offend you, so please hear me out. Organized religion has its place, but people need to think for themselves. You don't need to organize religion to think for you. You need to have critical thinking and be able to differentiate between the garbage and the good. And I treat my faith, many of my friends know that I treat my faith like a buffet. When I go to a buffet and I'm going to eat, I don't eat everything. I take helpings, I'll try it and go, ooh, I don't like that. And I never go back to that part of that buffet table. Oh, I like this. I want more. I treat my faith like that. I have for many, many years. It initially used to drive my mom and my dad, a little batty. I don't know if it does anymore. If you're listening to this, mom and dad, you know already how I feel. So, and the reason I talk about that is people need to figure out their own journey. I looked at myself when I was a young man, still living in my hometown of like 15,000 people. There was one, I use this as an example, there was one Lutheran church. By the time I moved away to start my own journey of life, there was 5. Do you think that the population could support 5 churches? No. One church, they didn't like the minister, so the pastor, so then those people splintered off, started another one. They didn't like it, they split, and 5 churches. So that just
Wow.
tells me that people aren't understanding what faith is. They don't get it. They want to control instead of just realizing, like yourself, like you said, you had to get to that point where prayer was important and God became part of your life again. For me, I would have never got through my divorce in a million years and raising my kids if I didn't have prayer. And for those that don't pray, that's fine. That's everybody's got their stick, their dealio. My dealio is praying to God, and I like the way you put that. Intuition as a response. Because it gave me peace, it gave me some serenity, and tied in with my prayers was gratitude. It automatically is a natural reflection if you're praying correctly. In my mind, my level of correct praying, I'm using gratitude. I'm appreciating everything and the little small nuances, even of being able to brush my teeth or swing my legs out and stand on the ground, right? When I thank God in the morning, simple stuff like that. So I can appreciate what you're saying, because like people laugh at this, but I've said it a few times and it's quite prevalent in society. People talk about it. If I stand in a garage, that don't make me a car. If I stand in a church, it doesn't make me a good person, right? Some of the big,
That's a great analogy.
right? Some of the biggest, jerks in my life have been through organized religion, because they use the religion as a control mechanism or a shield or whatever, and then figure that they can screw up and just ask for forgiveness and it's all okay. No, that's not how life works. Your actions need to change. You as a person need to change. Associations, it's all the things that you probably talk and coach with people too. So I really appreciate that answer, and for you being vulnerable about it, because obviously it could be a touchy subject. It's not for me. You're a human being, a beautiful, kind human being that I've been following for a while now. And whether or not you're Mormon, Catholic, Christian, whatever, even if you're atheist or agnostic, it don't matter to me. As long as your actions show me that you're a kind, good human being, we're always going to be solid. Always,
Yeah.
right?
I think everybody's belief is just as valid as the next. So if you're really connected to the Mormon church and you love it and that works for your family, great. If you're really connected to the Catholic church and that's your community and you love and you love being there and that's your deal, then it's great. I think it's all valid.
Just treat it like a buffet though. That's why I don't, you know how many times I've had people try to push me to go to other churches in my life? So many I've lost. I went my fingers and toes, so I couldn't count. And
Really?
that's how many people in my life and my 50 years that have tried convincing me to go to other churches, other religions. And I'll say to them, you know what? I don't need to. Well, this and that's not good about the Catholic Church. Okay. I didn't take that helping. What do you mean? I tell them my buffet analogy. I didn't take that helping, right? I don't need to chase to another church to appreciate God. I can still go to my church, and I go to, obviously with the pandemic, I watched it on online. I've only been to church a couple times because of restrictions, but I have my associations, my tribe, even at church, that understand who I am, and they seek me out and they talk to me. They know I'm a God-fearing person, that I'm kind, and that I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, but they know that I don't believe everything that the Catholic Church, even the priest. I've been to the Middle East with my church. With one of my favorite people in the world is a priest, and he used to be married even before he ever became a priest. And he's an amazing man. And we've had so many spiritual conversations. He knows exactly how I am, and he's never once judged me. He's never made me feel bad. And I'm not saying that would happen at every church. You need to find your connection to your faith, however it works, is basically my bottom line, right? Quit chasing from place to place. And I have one of my, God rest his soul, one of my close friends passed away from cancer a few years ago. And in our friendship of 20 some years, I think he was at 4, maybe 5 different churches. He'd go from church to church, not Catholic. He was just Christian churches, go to church to church to church because he didn't like somebody's opinion about something, or he didn't like things that the pastor said. And I used to say to him, well, shrug it off. You're focusing on the negative all the time. There must be some, oh, there's lots of good. Well, then who cares? Leave that at the table. You don't need to eat it. So I like food. If I didn't let you know that, that's probably why I use the buffet. That's why I use the buffet analogy.
That's a great analogy. Just leave it on the table. I didn't take that helping.
Exactly.
I'm going to steal that.
Go ahead. Why would you want to take something that makes you feel bloated? Or makes you feel like you need a nap because you're emotionally drained or strained, right? But thank you so much for that, being candid. So I know after years of frustration, you gave up on finding a real love. You felt that it was not out there, or if it was not for you. I have felt the same way for many years and can relate to that struggle. It is very real. I know one pivotal point in your life was watching your best friend, another single mom, walk down the aisle with, as you state, a badass husband. This caused you to have a breakthrough from your current thought process. I know it involved you finally achieving and experiencing real love after creating what you have been lacking for so long, and that was real self-worth. Can you share with the listeners and I some of the things that made you feel not worthy prior, and what steps you did to accomplish real self-worth on the path to your eventual real love?
I would love to. So going back at the very beginning, like you said, you really like to see the very beginning and not in the middle. I had my parents, with all the best intentions, were trying to help a teenage boy that had gotten kicked out of his own house when I was a really little girl. And he was a friend of my brother's, or quote unquote friend. I don't know how close they were. And so they let him stay with us for a little while. And he got me alone in our basement in California, and he molested me. And I've never talked about it before I wrote and released my book. I never talked about it with probably only less, like you said, like less 3 or 4 people in my entire life even know about it or knew about it. The first reason was because when that happens, when you're such a little girl, you don't really know what happened to you. You have no concept of what happened, right? You're told to keep a secret, and you say, okay, and whatever. And it's so disgustingly enough, it's so prevalent in this day and age we live in, horrifyingly prevalent. However, I think when you're that young, you don't understand it. So years and years and years later, it's not like it's anything that I really thought about. I didn't grow up saying, oh, I've been abused. I didn't think about it. I never thought about it. I didn't really even know what any of that meant. I didn't talk about it to anybody. And so when I was really struggling with my faith, and I was attending Brigham Young University at the time, and I had decided I really don't fit in here. This is not what I want to do. I had turned 21. My friends took me out to get drinks. Of course, I never had alcohol till I was 21 years old. Isn't that crazy?
Wow. Yeah.
I was very, very strict. I was like, whatever the rules are, I followed them. I was okay with it. Like,
so you always stayed in your tunnel. You didn't look outside. You had horse blinders on. You couldn't see past it. Interesting.
Oh, I was too afraid. I was like, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm afraid. So I had this little rebel of a roommate my junior year. She took me out for my 21st birthday and drove up to like every 21st birthday, but not where I come from. And so people were buying me shots, and oh my gosh, I didn't know anything about alcohol. So needless to say, I had a great time until I didn't.
Yeah, no doubt.
It was a bit of a rough night and a bit of a rough morning, as you could imagine. Yeah. I had no idea how much you're supposed to drink and how it would affect you later. You just everyone buying you shots over and over and over. Oh, ugh, I can't even drink shots now. But anyway, we had a good time. So we had this, and this is a bit of a long story, so I'll try to condense it. But I had a friend going through something really, really difficult at school. And he was doing something that was is against the law, really. But from what I could tell, he was just a bad guy. And I couldn't hold it in. We're in a choir because I was a vocal performance major. So I was going to I'd planned on being an opera singer. So this really a small elite group, and we were BYU singers, and we were the touring group, and I was really struggling. I didn't know what to do, so I went and told the conductor, "This is what's happening. I don't know what to do." And then in turn, this guy said, "Well, I'm gonna take Karen down with me. If I go down, Karen's going down." And I was just like, well, I was so naive. I was like 21 years old. I didn't know anything about anything. And I certainly didn't think they would kick me out of the very first time I've ever done anything wrong in my entire life.
Yeah.
So I just was so naive anyway. And I also wasn't street smart enough to go, just lie about it. They can't kick you out if you don't tell the truth, because otherwise it's just hearsay. But they do have an honor quote, and you do sign it. And I did sign it saying I would not drink. And everyone has to go to Brigham Young University. And I remember they called me down, and this is very dramatic when you're a 21-year-old kid. Come down, you get interviewed. Did you have alcohol? And I said, yes. And they said, how many times? And I said, 2, because I had one other time, 2 times. Okay. And I was like, okay, they can't kick me out for that, right? I mean, I've never been in trouble for anything I've never done anything wrong in my entire life. So we wait and wait and wait. 3 days go by. I finally get the call, and I said, you're out. We're kicking you out of school.
Oh.
And I was like, what? Wait a second. And now, of course, I don't know. I don't know what was going on. So we go to my conductor, and he said, well, let's appeal. And you can appeal the honor code, violation, people. And I said, okay. And he went in front of the board, and he said wonderful, amazing things about me, because we were going on tour to Australia. So I picked like the worst time to get kicked out of school is right before we're going to Australia for a month for free. Wow. And we're going to this huge competition. I just totally blew it. I wasn't very smart. So he appealed, and they finally came, the verdict a couple of days later, and whatever. They said, okay, you can stay in school. You can finish the semester, but you can't stay in choir, and you cannot go on tour. I was like, you guys, I was barely holding it together, and choir was the only thing, keeping my sanity at the time. And you can imagine how great my grades were after that. It was probably in the springtime. So I only had maybe like another month or 2 of that semester or whatever. I just completely crashed and burned. And then I said, that's it. I don't want anything to do with them. I'm done. I'm done. That's kind of like, I want to break to the church. I don't want anything to do with this anymore. And, I just went to work. I just got a job kind of an hour away, and I was just kind of just, what do they say? Like the fly, like the in the wind, like a just tumbleweed, just kind of throwing through the motions, working, trying to make some money. And, I had a couple of roommates, and I was miserable because all my whole support system and all my friends and when you're that age, that's the most important thing to you is your friends. And I didn't have a boyfriend. So they were an hour away. So I was kind of too busy to go visit them. And I was really struggling. So I got a call in the mid of the next semester, somewhere around October, November, whatever it was. And it was my choir director. And he said, Karen, I want you to come back. And that's all I needed to hear. I just wanted to be wanted. I just wanted to belong. I wanted somebody to want me, and because at least of all the stuff, everything that I knew, or everything that had happened to me, I knew I was a good singer. I was something that I was good at. I could hold on to that. And so, I wanted him to want me to come back. That was my family. That was my life. And so I had a bunch of things that I had to do. I had to do community service, and I had to write a report, and I had to do all these things to get back into school for them to allow me to come back to school. And I did all those things, and I went back in the following semester. I finished off one more semester, and which was good. And then I decided, okay, this is enough. That's when I moved to Arizona. Actually, someone told me that there was an amazing teacher who was a mezzo-soprano who sang at the Metropolitan Opera, and she lives in Arizona. Well, I spent my whole life going to Arizona because my grandparents lived here. So every chance we got, if we were close enough, obviously when we lived in Germany, we didn't come visit them, but in the States and close enough to drive, then we would come to Arizona over the Christmas break. And we were eating oranges off of their trees and grapefruits in the backyard. And like, this is paradise. It's 80 degrees on Christmas Day. It's the most beautiful place. I thought to me, I thought it was paradise. And, so someone told me about this teacher. I'm like, they live in Arizona. Okay. So this is before cell phones, right? This is 1997. I call her from my apartment in Utah. I said, hey, I'm Karen, and I would love to take voice lessons from you. And before I moved down there, you just want to make sure you had a spot. Like, do you have room for another student? And she cracked up laughing. She thought that was the funniest phone call she's ever gotten. She said, yes, of course. She said, okay, great. I said, I'm going to move down there next week. I'm going to spend a week with my granny first. And so how about 2 weeks from now? Can I have a lesson? Like, yes, of course.
Right on.
Pick up everything in my 1978 Datsun B210, and I drove to Arizona. No, I went to New Mexico first to spend a week with my granny, and then I drove over from there.
Wow.
I know.
So that was your path to, changing your life, and basically, so how did that person affect you from that point forward in regards to your self-worth and how you felt about yourself?
Yes, thank you for circling back, because the reason why I tell all of that backstory, because now it makes so much sense. I didn't know any of that at the time, but then of course I'm going to, fall into the arms of the first man who pays attention to me and makes me feel safe. And he had the same, he had not the same, but he also grew up Mormon, so he had the same background-ish. And I thought at the time that was so important. Someone that would understand just the faith and the way I was raised. And he was my very first real boyfriend in my entire life. So it makes so much sense now to marry your first boyfriend and to really feel like you needed someone to make you feel safe. And then, we were married, we had 2 children, and then our marriage started to fall apart. And that's when I got counseling for the first time. And she explained that the belief system, the internal belief system that you have, doesn't come from the events that happen, because 2 different people can have the exact same event happen to them, and they process it completely differently. It could completely destroy someone's life, and it completely have no effect, or seemingly no effect on someone else's. So it's the story around the event. And she helped me through, a childhood abuse. What story does that create? Well, I believed that I wasn't any value as a woman to a man. Men only wanted me for sex. That's what I believe. That's the story around sexual abuse that I created for myself. So I wanted attention from men. I wanted to be loved, and I wanted to be wanted. And probably being kind of cast away from my religion, even though that is not the religion, it's the school. I mean, I broke the rules, but in my brain, the story is they're going to cast me out if I tell the truth. So I learned lie no matter what, because if you tell the truth, they're going to kick you out. And I wasn't really of any value. I didn't believe that men really wanted to, to be friends with me or to spend time with me, or I was just a target, and I was just a means to an end, and that was the only thing that was important to me as far as I was concerned. And I just always felt like I wasn't good enough. I remember in a lot of those things, I don't know specific events, but from day one, I remember even learning about heaven. And in the LDS religion, there's different levels of heaven based on your righteousness. And I just thought, well, I don't think that I'm going to make it to that top level at 8 years old. I mean, who thinks that?
Wow.
That medium one sounds pretty good. I guess I'll be okay.
Let's pick one.
Maybe I'll make it there.
You better
Isn't
pick
that
one.
funny?
Yeah, pick one at 8. Figure it out.
Yeah, I remember
Wow.
learning about that and go, yeah, there's no way I'm never going to make it to that good one, because I make mistakes all the time, and Jesus is perfect. And so I'm supposed to be perfect. So, again, I have sisters who don't think that. They didn't hear that. They didn't create that story where I have to be perfect because Jesus was perfect. That's how I interpreted it. So I can't ever remember a time where I didn't feel like I was doing enough. I'm good enough. I am, skinny enough, pretty enough, all of it. I think that's the underlying theme. So it doesn't matter how much. It's like a merit-based self-evaluation constantly. I'm not doing enough. I'm never going to be enough. I'm never going to be perfect like Jesus. And so it was really that deep dive into, okay, so these are beliefs, and so many of them are created in that first, she explained this to me, 4 to 7 years, where they're basically the stories around the events are created subconsciously or not. And you take those with you. So it's almost like hardwiring. So we have to work really hard onto unpacking them and to rewire. And it is possible. But after years and years and years, like you said, felt like 1,000 years of raising my kids by myself. And I would, go on dates, a couple dates, and I would get really discouraged, because then after that, then you also have the story around the divorce. And of course, we could also talk about that for 17 hours. You create all of these stories, right? Yeah, it's because and most of them aren't even actually true. It's the story you create because of this happened, then, and I see this with a lot of people that are divorced, then marriage is the worst. Here's the belief now. So now, because one marriage crumbled and you experience the death of a marriage and death of a relationship and so much hardship and probably lots of anger and lots of things, then you develop these beliefs that are then they're all encompassing. So they're like all of a sudden to you, if you're not really careful and you're not conscious about it, they will become your universal truths. And if your universal truths are that all women are crazy, or all men are liars, or all men are scumbags, or marriage is terrible and it's a horrible institution, and real love is not possible, or because of X, Y, and Z, because I have 2 kids now, who's going to want to sign up for this and raise my kids? I don't have every other weekend or off or every other week. I have none of that. So who's going to even want to do that? And the more that you feed into those and believe those limiting negative beliefs about marriage and relationships and yourself, your value, your own worth, and just keep attracting the same people. So you always attract who you are, not who you want. And you are someone who just doesn't believe in themselves fully and doesn't love themselves fully, then you will just keep attracting people that have low self-worth. Just like you said, I don't love myself. How can I expect anybody else to love me? And if I don't respect myself, how you can't expect anybody to respect you unless you have your own self-respect and self-love and trust. And to take way too long to answer that question, I'm sorry. I get all sidetracked with all these stories.
It's all good information.
Oh, good. Okay. The wedding itself, it was it was a tipping point. It was a defining moment, because if your beliefs are centered around your current circumstances or your past, right? So some of my beliefs were, maybe I'll just wait till my kids are older. Like I just thought, well, maybe after they leave, they go to college, or, they leave the house, and then I'm just I don't have to, they're not my day-to-day responsibility 24/7. Maybe then I could attract someone and maybe have my own life and have a love relationship, and the one that I've always wanted. And then, because I work from home, everyone's working from home now, but I've been working from home since 2009 when no one was. Then I'm never going to meet anybody, or because I have debt. So I have these circumstances right now, or I rent a house, I lost my house. So I'm not worthy anymore because I was, irresponsible. Those are beliefs that we create around the events. Yes, I lost my house. Yes, that was a bad idea to buy that house in the first place. And then recession happened, and my divorce happened. And so I just always thought that I was kind of broken and damaged goods. Like I have way too much baggage. Who would want to sign up for that? And I'm thinking, wait, here's my friend. She is marrying the love of her life. She has 2 kids. She works from home. We were business partners. She also has all the baggage. She short sold her home. She doesn't have a foreclosure, but whatever. And it's just a lot of the same circumstances. And I just thought, okay, so what is it that she has that I don't have? Because basically our circumstances are about the same. She didn't have complete financial ruin like I did. But anyway, she had self-confidence. She had self-worth. Like she doesn't put up with BS from anybody, and she wouldn't let anybody mistreat her. And she also had certainty. So she would walk around and she was just like, oh yeah, he's coming. Oh, I know I'm going to meet him. I know I'm going to meet the one. I know he's on his way. I just know it. You could never tell her anything that would change her mind. And so I just said, I need to get those things because I know enough about the law of attraction and success principles to know whether you can or you can't, you're right. You have to believe it to conceive it. He didn't, Napoleon Hill doesn't say if you can conceive it, you can achieve it. No, you have to conceive it and believe it. So I realized that my belief system was the missing link. Because you can dream all you want, but if you never believe you're going to be able to do it, you can't visualize it. You can't believe that you can conceive it. Well, it's not going to happen. So I thought, all right, so what do I need to do to change my beliefs? And why don't I feel good about myself? Like, what is it, Karen? I'm asking myself, what is it that you feel that you could improve in your life and you could feel better about? Or what do you feel like you're a little bit ashamed about? And I thought about it. And on my way home from that wedding, I made a list in my phone. And I was like, okay. I was thinking about some things like physical, tactical things around my home. Actually, in my book, an entire chapter is about creating more harmony in your home because your environment affects how you feel about yourself and affects how you if you have peace or joy or not. And then I thought about my health and my finances and, how I was going to make small progress towards that. Forget everybody else. If I want a badass husband, then I've got to walk out the door feeling like a badass myself, period, end of story. So what do I need to do to feel that way? And then I just started on my list in every category: health, finances, my home, my environment, and my health, finances, my environment, my family. So those 4 categories, and I made small quantifiable goals in each area. And I just worked on them a little bit every day.
That's
and little
awesome.
by little. Yeah. After a while, and I wasn't like preparing to write a book or anything, or like, I wasn't preparing for like some strategy. I was just really good at strategies in business. And I was like, okay, so if I know hypothetically and, mentally speaking, that you need to become the person that you want to be in order to attract the person that you want. But I kept derailing myself and I would kind of, make bad decisions and I would be really, really, really responsible for a couple of weeks and then finally get a break and then be really irresponsible, for a weekend or whatever, however long I didn't have the kids. And once I started to work on the things that would make me feel better about myself and what I really wanted to improve in those 4 areas, I just realized that I just felt like happier for no reason. And I just felt more pep in my step and I felt more joy in the life that I had. My circumstances didn't change hardly at all. And so it's really not about the circumstances, it's about the internal work and how I can just make little small improvements and then recognize them. I'm like, wow, oh yeah, I'm feeling really good. I feel like I didn't meet somebody until I was happy with the life I had. And I had created a life that I didn't need a vacation from. Instead of always like, okay, I'm going to trudge through, I'm going to get through it. I'm going to do the things and get everything the kids need. And I'm going to do what my clients need and get to my meetings and get to these and I'm going to get through it. And then I have a break. Like I know I'm going to have some kind of a break in, 3 weeks or whatever it is. and I just got to get to the break. I just got to just make myself do it and everything that needs to be done. And then I'll get a break and it'll be fine. And so what I realized that I was building my self-worth, I was feeling better about myself. And then I didn't actually need a break. And that's when the magic happens. And that's when, after 17 months, I went to my client, Mr. John Stanley, and I walked in the door, and he just saw me differently. It was like a welcoming a friend like he hadn't seen in a long time, even though we've had monthly meetings for years and years and years, just business, I did his marketing. And it was really crazy because we just sat down and started talking for like an hour in the middle of the busiest day of the year on Thanksgiving weekend, when that's always the biggest weekend of the year, and on Saturday after Thanksgiving. And that's because I was a different person.
That's awesome. So you shared a lot. I kept on having the word filter pop into my head because you also talked about prior events and how we all look at events and interpret it differently. You, with your list, were starting to rewire your brain and how you looked at different things. And you were giving your brain positive, what's the word I'm looking for? Not really an affirmation, but you're giving your brain, you're feeding it not all the negativity you were feeding it before. Now you're feeding it something different. So you changed your internal filter to look at things through what I would, like the pink rosy glasses, as opposed to looking through it and seeing everything in a slanted bad way. Obviously, you had been through so much trauma from when you were a child, to being in a marriage that caused you strife, to losing your house, to all the other things. But they were all events that created a filter, that everything that come into your life was going through that filter, and it was still coming out negative on the other side. So, I appreciate you sharing that, because that list, and I remember listening to the podcast I listened to where you were interviewed here just recently, and you talked about that list, and it was profound, because it is so simple. Because I have a running list on my own phone as well, where I hear things from people in a conversation, a phone call, I'm listening to a podcast, and I'll tell it, and I leave myself notes in there, a form of, instant journaling. And then when I look at it later on my computer, because they sync together, I'll look at it and go, and then I'll extrapolate what I was thinking, or I'll expand on that thought process, because I'm always trying to rewire how I think. But if I don't put the effort into it, it's just like when you hear something in a class or a course, or you and I talk about it, you're retaining 10, 15% of it once we leave each other's presence. So if I don't constantly rewire my brain and change my filter when things come into my life, they're always going to be filtered based on the trauma of my past. And that's what I could hear from you. So for me, it's the filter of our lives is something we need to really learn how to pivot away and change the way that our current view of events is, and things that are so-called happening to us can be slanted to not be a negative. It's not like Ed would always say, right? And he wasn't a person to come up with that, but we hear it from him all the time. Things happen for us, not to us, right? But that's a filter.
So true.
By telling yourself that enough, when events happen that are that shake you to the core, or make you shudder, or whatever, make you sad, make you depressed because it's in the past, or it's anxiety in the future, if you can start to look at those events and think to yourself, oh, I'm thinking that way about that event. You know what? Oh, what did Ed say? What did Karen say when we had a conversation? How am I supposed to deal with stuff? Oh, I got to filter it differently. And listeners, every time you want to get better, you have to practice. You have to work your muscles in your brain. Your actual critical thinking process needs to be enhanced so that your filter stops and taking everything in and slanting it to the bad. I've worked at this for, I hate to say it because it ages me, but I started dealing with this stuff and learning it back 28 years ago now. And when I filter stuff, I actually think to myself, what would this person, how would they deal with it? If you need that, listeners, right up to the day you pass away, who cares? Oh, Ed would say, it happens for you, not to you. remind myself the people that are in my tribe that I respect what they say, to help me be stable so I don't slide backwards to that old filter where everything is doom, gloom, and the sky's falling, right? It's more
Yeah.
work than people realize. We're a work in progress. Like you've encapsulated it into a small thing, but the details to get to that point are critical. The biggest critical thing was you deciding, you making a decision, and starting to make that list in your phone in regards to health, finances, your environment, your family. That was your initial state of core values. I don't know if you've ever thought of it that way, but it is.
I never thought of it that way, but you're right. Those are the four things it's get crystal clear about what's the most important thing to you, and what causes you to feel like you're not worthy or you're not good enough, because you have a story. Like you said, our filter is not telling us the truth. It is just, this happened and therefore you're a loser, you're irresponsible because because you lost your house, and because you had to file for bankruptcy, because you couldn't make it in your marriage. And my filter was, well, because of all those things, that you're just never going to be good enough. So I thought, okay, well, what can I always say, small quantifiable goals, because if they're not quantifiable, how do you know if you've done them? And I had debt. Okay. So I have a circumstance. And just like you said, my filter said, well, I owe the IRS 30 grand. And that makes me an irresponsible idiot that no one would want to marry, because who's going to want to marry someone with debt? That's stupid. You're irresponsible. You're 35. You shouldn't have debt, right? That's all stories. And you can also frame it a different way. Okay. When I had those few years in there, was my very first time where I was a 1099 employee instead of a W-2, where the taxes are taken out for me ahead of time. Well, that was the first time I ever had that. So, because I was starting something new, it was right after the recession. I'm trying to get new clients for her and rebuild the business from scratch. And it's the first experience I've had with that. And so, yes, it was irresponsible of me to not do the quarterly thing and set aside money and do the taxes like I'm supposed to do. However, I wasn't really making all that much money, and I really needed it at that time. And yeah, government's not going anywhere. I mean, they're going to get their money at some point. And so in the reframing and taking away that filter that makes me a loser, what can I do to disprove that belief? Because that's just a belief. Okay, I have debt. Well, a lot of people have debt, but for me, I thought that was a crushing fact about myself that made me an irresponsible idiot. Well, that's not helping me. I know that's not going to help me, attract the people that I want in life, is to feel that way. And I said, okay, well, then I will just set up a small installment plan where, they don't care. I mean, if you're paying it off at some point, they're not going anywhere. And it's not like I had some elaborate plan to, move to Canada and never pay them. I didn't plan on doing that. Okay. I was irresponsible, but that was in the past. That doesn't mean anything about today. So what can I do? So I really think it's a combination of reframing, finding the truth. Okay, that happened. You have debt. Now what? Now that doesn't make me irresponsible today. So today I have an installment plan. I pay $400 a month, and it goes out of my checking account on the first of every single month. And I don't look at it. I don't want to know. It's going to be a while. It doesn't matter. So I'm focusing on what I'm doing right now, because that's responsible. I don't happen to have 30 grand in cash back then, and I couldn't just pay it off. Guess what? I am responsible. I am doing something to disprove the limiting negative belief from my past actions, right? Sometimes we create our own lack of self-worth because we were irresponsible. So of course we're going to feel bad about ourselves. So I really believe that's the 1-2 punch. That's what helped me the most. Disproving, what can I do to disprove it? And that's to take some small quantifiable action and then look at the progress. It's going to be zero. It's going to be zero. What are we going to do when it is zero? I'm going to take my kids on a trip. We're going to have a celebration. So you're reframing it because you're doing something about it. And therefore, I'm not going to walk around thinking that I'm a loser and I'm irresponsible and I'm financially an idiot. I'm not going to do that anymore, because that's not true. And you know why it's true? Because that $400 just came out of my account because I'm paying it off.
Well, you owned it. You owned the whole process. Yes. You owned your own stuff. You put actionable steps in place, instead of dwelling on it. And unfortunately, most of our society gets into a situation similar to yours, or I've been through it too. And we climb into that rabbit hole that everybody talks about, and we feel sorry for ourselves. And a lot of times it has to do with associations. So obviously, did you have associations that helped you along the way? Or was it just something that you woke up one day and had this epiphany? I'm going to start making this list. I'm going to take ownership from my stuff. I'm going to figure out how to pay off my debts. I'm going to do the $400 a month. Was there anybody key along the way that made you have that initial light bulb moment? Because it doesn't matter who we reach in our lives and who tries to help us unless we own it, which you proved to me that you owned it. But was there anybody that just felt like a hammer on the head and going like, bang, Karen, you need to do this? Or was it just something, maybe it was God that spoke to you? Maybe it was through, it doesn't have to necessarily be somebody, but I find usually there's somebody in our lives that was a catalyst and we didn't even realize it until we actually thought about it.
Yeah. I think, I buried myself in books as well. I mean, like we've read all the same books probably. And the few that you just already mentioned before we started recording, I feel like reading constantly, your brain is changing with every book you read. So if you're reading garbage, you're going to feel like garbage and vice versa. And so, but I did have, very cheerleader friends leading up to that point where we were trying to make changes and we would be each other's accountability partners. I have a friend who lives in San Francisco. And so we would have a meeting every week. That was a few years leading up to that point. And so I feel like I would make progress and then take 2 steps back, make step forward, take 2 steps back. And that was just kind of always put me back into the same place. Well, I didn't make a good decision today. So I'm the same. Like, I'm just exactly the same as I was. And that's why you just say, we get into a depression or the self-loathing. And I've been there. I know what that's like. Spent years in that place. I was trying really hard, but then something wouldn't work out. As you immediately go back to your baseline. If your baseline belief about yourself is that you're never going to be good enough, so why even bother? I know what that's like. And the only way I could see out of it is to have a physical manifestation of what I really wanted. So and to have that why, like all of the people that we follow and who mentor us and we really respect, they talk about having that why. And I thought, I'm not meant to be, we are not solitary creatures. We are not meant to be alone. We need love. We need partnership. We are supposed to have companionship and love, romance and partnership, no matter what you say, what anybody actually says. Everybody wants love and romance and partnership and companionship. Everybody wants that. And that's how we're built. And so I also thought, what I really wanted was my children to see a great relationship. So I wanted one for myself, but I also wanted to have my family to be complete. I really wanted to show them, have a physical manifestation of a really healthy, wonderful relationship, or how a husband is to his wife. It's not like they were just too young. I mean, they're babies. So it wasn't like I had already showed them some example. I didn't show them anything, but they were babies when their dad and I separated. And so they don't remember us together at all. But I really wanted them to have an example. And of course I wanted, I wanted my own love and I wanted my own life. And so I think it was God. I really do, because I think he was getting John ready. And maybe that sounds silly to some people, but it was 17 months before we got together. So I think, and he was just leaving his marital home and his marriage of over 20 years. And so it's kind of funny how he was getting us ready at the same time. We just didn't know it. And because like, to your point, this work and this reframing and the filters that we have and how do we see how it's working for us, literally, you have to do that every day forever. No matter who's in your life, no matter what you're, like, even if you have an amazing husband, I still have to do that every second of every day. And an amazing wife, amazing life, amazing everything. It's like, oh no, things come at us all the time. So we constantly, it's just, you're so right. Just got to practice it. I just got to practice. And so I'm just going to get better tomorrow.
Every day till your last breath. And then the thing that's
day.
most important in all of this, and the reason I asked about it, the associations, is the continued growth and associations we bring into our lives that help continually remind us of our past, not in a bad way, but they help us, like you use the word reframing, they help us reframe why we felt things. Like you talked about the fact of, being $30,000 in, it was irresponsible. Do you know my brain automatically chopped irresponsible? You weren't irresponsible. You didn't know any better. You were ignorant to the fact, right? When you figured it out, whether no matter the time frame, your ignorance became what? It became knowledge. And then you took action to be the responsible individual to take care of it. You also disconnected it out of your mind, the fact that $400 is coming out of your bank account. It's no matter how long it takes, it's going to get taken care of because I'm an honest individual. So I heard different than you presented because of the way my brain is wired to filter. And I'm not saying what you said was wrong. I'm just people. So I could be saying stuff, and as a friend, we're on a Zoom call, just visiting, catching up. And I tell Karen, boo hoo, woo hoo. And I'm having one of those moments because I never have bad days ever. I've stopped that years ago. I have character building moments and I deal with that shit, right? And just move on. And
I love that.
So if you and I are talking and I have one of those character building moments and you happen to be, present while I'm having it, I hope that we're close enough that you call me and say, you know what? I heard you say this word. You weren't irresponsible, Karen. You were just ignorant to the workings of life. And you also had financial strife where you needed that money. So it wasn't that you were being intentionally fraudulent. You were at a bad place in your life. You were ignorant to the different nuances of what you needed to do. When you figured it out, and you put the right steps in place, both physically to pay the debt off and mentally you told yourself, don't let that hang you back, and you moved forward. And that's amazing. That's what I hear from it. Right.
Thank you.
That's what we need as friends. We need to help each other constantly level up. And I appreciate when people say, you said that word. And that's another thing. I work on my filter. I never, when people, as long as it's not what you say, it's how you say, as long as people present things to me in a kind way, they could be telling me I'm the biggest village idiot. I'll just be like, okay, I'm the biggest village idiot.
Sorry.
Right? I like kind things, right? I like people that are kind and how they, because I raised my kids their whole lives on two basic principles. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And is that a need or a want? And then if you figure it's a need, then let's justify it. Let's have a conversation. Oh, wait a minute. Let's look at the budget. Oh, no, that doesn't fit. It's a want. It's not a need. So we can't figure that out now. But is it the want that you want is to justify it? Maybe we can fit it in here months later. Like I'd have those conversations, but I didn't wake up one day going, oh, I know how money works. Oh my gosh, the amount of quiet desperation and crap that I had to live with and hydroplane above in my lifetime. It was the people that I started, and it did for me. It started with God too. God was speaking to me. And I'd pray about even people that were in my life. And I'd get answers about somebody that was a friend of mine for 20 years. And I'd wake up and God would be saying, get rid of this person. They're not good for your family and you. And I'd be like, I must be misinterpreting it. I don't know if you've ever had that happen. Then I'd pray again and I pray again. Then maybe 7-10 days later, I'm getting the same answer. And then I finally started acting on that and finally started listening to, as you called it, intuition, listening to myself, and I started getting rid of friends. I started reframing. I started finding people that would call me out of my crap in a nice way. Right? That gave me books to read. I still remember the first book I ever got handed to by one of my friends, who's friends now of 30, going to be 32 years right away. Him handing me How to Unfriends and Influence People. This is like 1993. You need to read this. It could really do good for you. That's all he said. Instead of saying, you're grumpy. You
need this book.
You're going through, you're going through marital problems. Instead of, you know what I mean? Here, you need this book. It could really help you out. Right?
Wow.
Right?
Thank you, God.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Things come into our path when they're needed, but sometimes we're so blind to it that opportunity passes us right by because, and not just opportunity financial. Opportunity means the opportunity to grow mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever, people come into our lives and we discount it because our filter is so intertwined into negativity. And why would that person want to help me? Why did they offer to do this for me? What's in it for them? You know what I mean? Just the filters that we've programmed ourselves and in our lives is just amazing. So we're going to go on to the next thing, because we could go, you and I could probably talk all day and have like I talked about, a 6-part mini series, because I'm not even going to get
I
through.
know,
I'm
there's
not
so
even going to get
much.
through. Remember, I said I'd be lucky if I got through. I was pretty sure I wouldn't get through like a third of these questions, and that's going to happen. And that's okay, because now we can have another conversation, in the future, 2-3 months from now, we can do another and follow up. But there's a couple things I
Great. I'm
really
in.
wanted to discuss, because we're coming up on the hour already. I know writing my own book was extremely emotional for me, really, like both good and bad. I was emotionally drained every day when I was working on it, going through the review, editing process, right up to it going live. I found it very draining. It was cathartic. It was also helpful too. But so it helped me acknowledge and heal on things I thought I had already dealt with that I hadn't. I'd compartmentalized, stuck that in the back part of my brain and wasn't dealing with it. So how did writing your book, Becoming Mrs. Stanley, the Single Mom's Guide to Creating the Life You Want, become a reality? And what emotional roller coaster, if any, did you go through while writing it? And if so, did it help close the door on any trauma that you still had lingering as you wrote the book and got it done?
I'm so glad you asked me that. First of all, I have your book and I can't wait to read it. I have
I bought
ordered it.
yours yet. I got yours yesterday on Kindle. I started reading it. I
Oh,
started reading it last night. I got about 3-4 pages and I was just too tired. But yes, I bought yours on Kindle last night and started
oh,
reading it.
thank you.
You're
Yeah, I
welcome.
can't wait. I got a paperback.
You're my friend now, right? So I've got to,
Yes.
I want to connect in every level that I can with you, right?
And support each other. And thank you. I really appreciate that.
You too. Yeah.
I was very difficult for me, I have to say, because I grew up, probably because of the way I grew up, I think all of us to some extent are basically taught to share the good, like you said, focus on the positives. That means if you're struggling with something, don't tell anybody. Pretend everything's fine, have a smile, be your best self and be kind, be happy and do all these things. And but that's what you share with people. If you've done something to be ashamed of, or if you've done something bad, or you made bad decisions, you don't tell anybody that kind of stuff. Like, you just kind of leave that be. And I really felt that way. And so what I really wanted to share is all the things that helped me, because I was like so excited, because I finally stopped feeling like I am worthless, and I finally figured out a strategy for keeping myself focused on what I wanted to create. What I wanted was an amazing husband. And so I had to make sure, like you say, you taught your kids to be kind. Well, I want someone who's kind. And so what that does is help you say, what can I do to be kind today? So it keeps your focus 100% on, I want someone who's healthy, so I'm going to get my ass to the gym. I want someone who's, financially responsible. I have to be financially responsible, and on and on and on and on. And I felt like these systems really help somebody. So if somebody else is single and doesn't want to be, and could perhaps maybe have some of these blocks, some of these beliefs are blocking them from attracting the person that is wanting them and who is perfect for them. But you have this belief that's keeping you from attracting that person, because you believe whatever it is based on the past. You might believe that you don't want to get married again because it was such a nightmare, because those beliefs are only created from what you experienced. And what you have not experienced is maybe perhaps a very loving, healthy relationship where you're a true partner in every way, and someone who really gets you and you can be completely honest. But what I did not want to share is the dark side. We all have a dark side, right? So the side that we like to shine the light on and for everybody to see, and the strategies. And then as I kind of wrote the first draft is just like, hey, we're going to do just strategies. And I didn't share anything that really happened, anything that really mattered, any of my failures, any of my dark days, or any of these things. And I thought, this is no good. This is just junk if I don't share, if I don't really share. Because I think when we don't share the things that we failed, and where we were hurt, and where we really stumbled, where we're like, just felt like shit about ourselves, if we don't share that, we are doing everyone else in the whole world a disservice. And so I wrote in, then I went back through the whole thing. Even after it was edited, I went through the whole thing again. And I started telling stories. I was like, I've got to have really what happened, because that's how you create your beliefs. And then, as I was going along, I tried to insert as much as I could share, because of my, very religious family. I was like, oh man, my mom and dad are going to read this. I don't want
thought the same things. Same things. It's awesome.
I just don't want to tell anybody. I don't want them. I don't want to share the part where I used to sit outside and drink a bottle of wine and smoke a pack of cigarettes, after my husband moved out. And I was just like, I don't want to tell you. I'm not proud of that. I'm ashamed of that. And then I thought, I have to. That is the most difficult thing for me to do. And I think that's another lesson in there, is like, whatever's the most difficult for you to do, that's probably the most important. And how can you relate to anybody? Everybody just thinks, oh, I have some great strategies. This is going to change your life. Boom. And that's not true. That's not me.
I don't like books like that though. They just
no.
mechanical.
And I just didn't want to be like that. I was like, what can I share? And so I was always kind of in a conflict of how much stories, how much sharing, how much of the last, 40 years do you put in one book? I mean, it would be like you said, it'd be like 6-part, each book would be 450 pages. Yeah. So
I hear that.
Yeah, that was really hard for me. And it was, and the most difficult thing, it was easy, not easy, but it was a lot easier for me to write and have nobody read it. It just existed on my computer, and the only person that read it was my husband. And then, just letting it go, letting another human being read my story, because what if they think it sucks? What if I'm not going to help them at all? What if that, all of the what ifs,
the self-limiting beliefs that we've instilled in our lives come crashing out when you write a book. Trust, I went through it. Listening to you was like, I changed stories, added stuff. Then I went back through just before the final, like literally 2 weeks before it was supposed to go live. I changed some stuff around. I put stuff back in that I took out. And I thought, you know what? This is me. Full glory, right? Obviously, I could write another book because it's only 150 pages. I think yours is around the same, 170 or 180.
Yeah, 170 or 80 or something.
Yeah. So yeah,
was that the hardest thing for you, is just to let it go and like publish the damn thing?
Yes. And it was, I literally, Karen, it was an amazing process. That's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I think people miss that we all just get asked the same stuff over and over again. And I want to know what caused you to be the strong, confident person you are. And yes, you have moments where you're not, but majority of your life has become a strong, confident individual that serves others, serves your family, and the 4 things that we talked about, your core value, some of your core value beliefs. But the book itself, it was very, even sitting here, because it'll be 6 weeks ago tomorrow that it went live, and I could not sleep the night before. Like, I was literally in nervous wreck and thinking, second guessing, I shouldn't have put that in there. Why didn't I keep that in there? Why did I take that out? And now I don't care. Now it's just, it is what it is. And I can go and edit it. I can do, second edition or whatever. I could change it, but I'm not going to. And it's glory. It is imperfect and perfect at the same time, right? It's my life. And if I offended somebody, I'm sorry, right? If somebody thinks they should have been acknowledged in there, sorry, right? But I'm not really sorry. It is what it is. It's me, right?
I did the same thing. Oh, I should have put that story. Oh, I forgot about this. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. That's really a stupid line. That's a terrible paragraph. Like, just gotta let it go. Just gotta let it go. We're all imperfect. And I can always, what was really cool though, I have to say, is that I recorded the audio version of it. And
I haven't done mine yet. I haven't done mine.
You gotta do it. Yeah, you gotta do it. And
so you have yours on Audible? I'm gonna buy it then, because I prefer to listen than to read. I'll buy it. I'll buy the Audible today.
I'm waiting for them to approve it and be live. So it's not live yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what I did, I had recorded the whole thing, just, word for word as the book or basically I added some segments or whatever, but I got the recording done. It took me 3 different tries, because the first time I thought I sounded stale. And the second time I added and changed so much, I had to record the whole thing, and I still didn't like it. But then I listened to David Goggins' book, and he had interviews in between each chapter. And I was like, this is brilliant, because you can have a conversation in between and have that opportunity to say, everything that I thought I really wanted to talk about, I didn't put in, I should have put in, I can't believe I took out all of these things that we were thinking. You can add those to your audiobook. So my audiobook is 2 extra hours of content. So I had my good friend and brilliant entrepreneur and really good communicator interview me and ask questions in between. So you have a chapter and then you kind of unpack it and talk about it more, and have a chapter and unpack it. So I really, I encourage you to do that, because just start writing your notes of everything you wish you had to put in. And why did I take that out? And, oh, I really wish I would have talked about this, because I have 1,000 of them. And so,
well, you would
it was
have,
really,
I definitely would do that. It's going to take, I promised people I'd have it done by the summer, because I have a bunch of people that want me to do it on Audible. But the fact of the matter is, it's going to be time consuming, because I'm going to have to read the book. I'm going to have to jot notes down. Well, I may have had the thought process, but I didn't write it down. Oh, I should have said this or not this. I have thought about it, because I know Tony with his Side Hustle Millionaire book did the same thing. He added value after every chapter. He reviewed the chapter and explained things, how it fit, or filled in gaps, similar to what you're talking about. Never thought about the interview style, though. That's kind of neat. I look forward to listening.
You're already a podcaster, and you already have that conversational, I think, aspect was so powerful. And then he didn't read his own book, so he had a narrator, but that was the narrator asking a question. He's like, oh my gosh, you got to tell us more about this story, and then you need to tell us, let's expand to this. And he would get and get it out of you.
Now I got to think about who I'd do that with. But anyway,
I know.
I know a bunch. I know tons of people that would do it for me. But yeah. But anyway, that's going to be on the back burner. But thank you for sharing about that. It's nice to know that I wasn't the only person that was going through trials and tribulations and cold sweats and happy moments and then sad moments. It was like this, right? 5 months,
way more
5 months.
Trials and tribulations than I thought.
My
it
gosh.
was way more difficult than I ever imagined.
Now I know why hardly anybody writes books. And bottom line, now I also know why people have stinker books too, right? They're methodical and mechanical. They're, I don't want to disrespect people that have written books, but some of the books I've read in my life are just like watching toast brown, right? It's about as exciting as that. Or watching paint.
Now we know how easy it is. I mean, it's so, how would you know until you just start writing, and then you have no idea what you're doing until you do it and practice and have someone edit it and then have someone else edit it.
My gosh, that's what I did too. My first couple edits weren't, I didn't really like them. Then they brought in one of the other editors went through it, and I eventually got to the point where I just screw it. I'm doing it all myself. And I literally 2 weeks prior to that, I started page 1 on my computer and went through every single paragraph, chapter, read a lot of it out loud.
Yeah.
Same. So that I could actually, because our brain does not know the difference between a lie and the truth. But when you speak it out loud, it has a better chance of using your brain's conditioning of your conscious and subconscious mind to have a reality that it knows the difference between the truth and a lie. When we just think, right? Even when we're reading, I'm reading a book, it's not as effective as if I'm listening. For me, I'm not saying this for everybody. Even that's why I love Audible. I'm an Audible junkie. I'm such a slow reader, right? Because I read so much during the day from my business contracts, product information. For me to relax, I prefer to listen, right? So, but anyway, we digress. Thank you so much for talking to me about that. We'll have more conversations about this. So we're a little bit past what I wanted, but I still have I have a couple more questions I want to ask you. This one really has to do with your musical background. So I know part of who you are is the appreciation, love, and participation in the classical music world. What started you on this path? You have talked a little bit about it, but I want to know more about it. So what started you on this path, and what would you say music has done for you to keep you grounded through your life journey? Any examples would be awesome.
Oh my gosh. My first performance was at age 2. So my dad was in the Air Force as a band conductor. He conducted the bands. So
Wow.
I was raised by two musicians. They met in band in college. They were going to raise a musical family. That's part of the deal. My dad was dating somebody before he started dating my mom, found out she couldn't carry a tune, couldn't match pitch. She was out. Yes. That was not going to work in my dad's grand scheme. So it's really funny. So we were like literally the Von Trapp family. I mean, we had rehearsals in our front room, and we would go up on stage with dad and we would sing. And we have pictures of me, all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's of the eight of the 11 children, 8 of us are girls. So I have 7 sisters and then 3 brothers. So all the sisters in a row. And here's this little teeny kid, I have whoever was the smallest, it didn't matter. We were up there singing along at age 2. So music wasn't a source of joy. Music was what we had to do. So I was being obedient, and I wanted my parents' approval. Obviously, every child does. And when I was 10, my dad told me to play the cello. And so I did. So I played piano, cello. And then it wasn't until high school that I got into actual choir, because we always sang at church, in the church choir. I mean, forever, unless I was playing the piano for them. And, we would do concerts where I was, playing the cello in the orchestra, and I would get up and go sing a solo and then go back down and play the cello in the orchestra, so it just was, it was what it was. It's like, asking a fish what it's like to grow up in the ocean. Like, I don't know I can't even imagine life not being like that. Constantly practicing. I couldn't go anywhere unless I practiced the piano first. And so it wasn't joy. It wasn't something that I really enjoyed. But once I got to high school and people heard me sing, well, I was like, I didn't think it was anything special. Everybody sings. My older sisters sang. They all went to state choir, all this stuff. And I was like, but they thought I was something special. And even as a cello player, I thought, and I would do I did all the competitions, and I was always win everything. And I was it really filled me with joy once I found the music that I really liked. And I was kind of away from, just singing with my family, or just singing because I had to, or going to rehearsal because that's what we were doing. And then I was in the music building, and I saw this bulletin board, and it said alto section leader. And I was like, like a phone number. I was like, what is that? I had never heard of anything like that before. So I just called and I said, hi, I saw this on a job board that you needed an alto section leader. And I just wanted to see what that was about. I'm a music student at BYU, and it was a cathedral. It was a Catholic cathedral in Salt Lake City, downtown Salt Lake City, minutes from the Mormon temple. There's a huge, beautiful Catholic cathedral, massive, gorgeous Cathedral of the Madeleine. And
Yeah, I've seen it.
You have? It's beautiful.
I haven't been inside it, but I've been outside of it. Yeah. I've been to Salt Lake
Yes.
a few times. It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Gorgeous. And don't think I had ever been to a Catholic church. I may have been one time with my friend when I was a kid, but I don't think I'd ever been to a Catholic church. And he said, oh, great, we rehearse on Wednesdays. And so just come to rehearsal. And so basically he said, well, I still didn't understand what was happening, because you don't pay anybody in the Mormon church. Everybody's a volunteer. Every job is a volunteer job. And so it didn't dawn on me that they actually pay singers to come sing in the choir. I never heard of that before. And I just came, they gave me some music. I sang what they put in front of me, and they're like, great, you got the job. I'm like, this is a job? I've been preparing for this job my entire life.
Awesome.
I'm so good at this. And that's it's 2 parts. I absolutely fell in love with choral music and the music that we would sing, and like the sacred music from the 1500s and 1600s. That's from the Catholic tradition, all those composers. I absolutely loved the music from the Renaissance and the Baroque era. So I loved singing that. And it gave me so much, it made me feel good, because I was something that I was actually really good at.
So the emotional release was really good. The emotional release you got from singing for those songs that you mentioned was very cathartic and helped you out.
Yeah. It's very hard to describe what music does. So how some songs I could care less about. I just want to get through it because that's my job. And some songs it brings me to tears because I feel so much emotion for some reason. It's very hard for me to articulate what that is, but it certainly was a huge amount of joy in my adulthood, and then, learning, and I wanted to get better, and I wanted to get better at performing, and did a lot of solo work. And I did a lot of, I was super fortunate enough to, I knew I didn't want to do music as a full-time career because it was it was very unstable. And that really frightened me. I really wanted to have a family someday and be married and have children. I was like, how am I going to do that if you have a new job every 2 weeks and going to a different city to go perform here, and then you go here? And then I couldn't wrap my brain around how I didn't want that as my life. And so I was fortunate to have a marketing career, and then be able to have, all of these professional, gigs and professional groups, choirs, and, orchestras and concerts that I was able to participate in and sing with. And I feel so fortunate. Gave me a lot of joy.
Valuable part of your life is what I'm basically hearing.
100%.
Obviously, initially when you started, having the band Trap Family, I love that. We don't realize sometimes though what happens in our childhood and how valuable it is as an adult until it's our decision, until we don't feel like it's being rammed down our throat. But I think one of the hardest thing is for us to realize that it is our decision to make. It's nobody else's decision. Once we become of age and majority and we have the legal rights to make decisions, it's hard to tell our families what we want to do in regards to religion, what we want to do in regards to our future, whether it's singing, not singing, right? Who knows where we go in our lives, but so many people are lost in their lives till today in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, because they've always lived the template of what everybody else figured they should fit into, the little box, right? So it's nice to hear that evolution of the fact of where you started and how it come to a point full circle where it was now about you, and the connection of how it helped you, level up basically. It's awesome going, you're not sure what an alto section leader is, go there and find out you get paid. Like that's, I would have just been like,
in the choir?
Yeah.
It was the best thing ever. I got $200 a month, $50 a week. And I would go to one rehearsal and sing one mass. I was like, you gotta be kidding. You're giving me $200 a month. It was the best day of my life.
Yeah, the Catholic Church does that. What we call them honorariums here. So, like, if somebody sings at a wedding, if the choir gets hired, or if you use the ministry services, if it's a wedding, a funeral, whatever, they get paid. They call them honorariums, right? It's not necessarily, so there's no taxes involved. Well, here's here's $150, or here's $200, or whatever the dollar value is. So yeah, they've been doing that as long as I can remember, even as an altar server. If I would get excused from school to go do a funeral, not always, it wasn't a requirement. It was encouraged. I'd get $5.
Wow.
I go to leave, and we're talking, this is back in the late 70s, early 80s, right? Here's $5. Or sometimes I get $10 or whatever. There'd be a little envelope with my name on it, and they'd hand it to me. Or then the priest would get one, and the music ministry leader would get some, and then divvy it up. And so it didn't shock me that you said that, right?
Funny.
It was always
me.
It was an appreciation thing, right? To appreciate the fact that your time is worth something. And I remember my grandma, she used to talk about the fact, well, when you get that money, it's like you can get some fries and gravy at the local cafe, and you can treat yourself. That's because she'd let me $5. God rest her soul, right? My dad's mom, the lady that bore 18 children, right?
Oh,
well, actually, she had a set of twins, so she was only pregnant 17 times.
Wow. Wow.
But, just stuff like that. So getting that little bit of money probably made you got to sing and be joyful. You enjoyed it. You got to learn a little bit about the Catholic music, the history, and you had a little bit of money, a little bit of pocket change. Like that, to me, that's exciting. You sharing with that makes me glad, right? It just makes me smile.
It was the best. This is literally what I was born to do. You want me to come in and sing the right notes? I can do that. And I make everybody else who is just a volunteer is singing in the choir because they love music and they're not very good at it. Some of them are better than others, but because I'm there singing the right notes, they know what to do. And so I'm helping them, and I'm like, they're loving that I'm there. It's like, there's nothing better. There's nothing better.
And then I'm not sure what your love languages are, but it sounds like words of affirmation would probably be in there somewhere. So if they're probably good for you, Karen. Wow, that's amazing. Listen to you. And then you're able to encourage others. And it was I can just picture it in my mind's eye, the visual of you supporting others once your confidence was continually built by them. They want me to come back and sing. What?
Yeah.
They're gonna pay me? And I get to come back every week? Oh
Yeah.
wow. Oh,
They
you
they
seem
paid
like
for
you're
me to
struggling.
Oh yeah, they paid for me to go to Italy. They paid my entire way to go to Italy. I got to sing in the Vatican, and we
Wow.
sang there, and that's talk about being wanted, so
Yeah.
this is the same girl at 20 years old. I'm struggling with my own faith, and I'm sitting there, and they're willing to spend thousands of dollars for me to come with them so I can help them sound better. I'm like, that's crazy.
That's
And it was
great for
so
yourself.
amazing.
That's great for your self-esteem though. And oh
So good.
man, I'm living vicariously through you because it makes me happy just to hear this. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Aw.
So Karen, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
I love that question. I would say get crystal clear about what it is that you want to create in your life. And then really clear if you're wanting to attract an amazing spouse, partner, friend, business, anything or body, health, finances, get really clear about what that means. And then think of small quantifiable goals of how you can make progress to get there. Because like you said earlier, it's really about the progress because just like in that one example about the finances, just making that, I saw that go. I didn't focus on what number it was. I saw the progress that I was making because I knew it was $400 less every first of the month. And so I didn't look at how long it was taking for the balance to go down. As you can do the math, you can tell how long that's going to take. I didn't focus on that. So you find these little ways to shift your focus to, I'm creating a life where I am responsible. These things that I believed about myself are not true, but why aren't they true? I think it's if we really work on intentionally disproving the limiting negative beliefs that we have, we do that with reframing and action. So what action today can I do to reframe that limiting, horrible, ugly belief that you have about whatever it is? If you're trying to create wealth and you have a negative, a jealous belief about someone else who has created what you want and has the wealth that you want, well, you're going to have a hell of a hard time attracting that wealth, right? So you've got to reframe that about that. There's enough wealth to go around for everybody. There's enough business for everybody. And I want everyone to succeed. And I truly do. And really, the reason why I wrote this book is because it kills me to see people who are either suffering in toxic relationships or alone only because of their mindset, their beliefs about marriage or about partnerships or about the opposite sex or the same sex, whatever it is. And so if we could just make small, tiny, itty bitty progress toward the life that we really want to create and be honest. What do you really, really, really want? And it's not about a house on Laguna Beach. And if you really, really, really want that, well then great, make one step toward it. We make another phone call, get that side hustle going, whatever it is. But if it's a partner, it's achievable only from within. Kindness starts in the mirror, love starts in the mirror, patience starts in the mirror. And attracting love and someone who loves you, who's honest, who loves you exactly the way you are, requires you to be that person. It requires you to be honest, say what's really on your mind, and be really clear about the type of person that you want to share your life with, and then work every day to be one step closer to becoming that person, because no one's perfect. Like you said, it's a never ending game. We're always growing. We're always want to be better. I'm still not the person I want to be. I'm just working on becoming that person. And that's my hope, is that we take it down a notch. We have a big goal, big, huge goal. Okay, what can I do today? So we don't have so much pressure on ourselves, that we can make progress and we can feel good. And our beliefs are changed by the small actions that we can take. Make huge, huge changes by one little tiny step at a time, one little quantifiable goal at a time. Because after a couple of months, you look back and you're like, wow, I have changed a lot. I have done a lot. But you won't notice it unless you actually stop and take a look at your progress and look at how far you've come. in a short amount of time by doing one little teeny thing at a time. That's what I would say.
Awesome. That's amazing. That's great.
Thank
Listeners, you
you.
need to rewind and listen to the whole podcast, but especially that section. So, well, our time is almost up, and I want to respect our listeners and your time. However, before we end, can you please tell the listeners what's the best way to reach you?
Oh, thank you. My website is mrskarenstanley.com, and Stanley. My husband always says, like the tools. Of course, I had no idea what he was talking about. And I have a weekly newsletter and lots of free resources, including a huge book list of most of the books that I've read, actually just part of the books that I read that are great. And then on Instagram at official Mrs. Karen Stanley.
Right on. I'll make sure they're put in the show notes, and the listeners, you can just go to giveaheck.com into the podcast tab, and you'll find access to the podcast show notes, and you can check out and click on any of the links. Or if you want to, you can reach out to me and I can connect you to Karen as well. So thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Karen. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.